Good morning and welcome to Legally Speaking with attorney Antoinette Osbourne. This program is for information purposes only. If you need legal advice, you can contact me, Antoinette Osbourne, at 718-502-9137. That's 718-502-9137. The office focuses on divorce, immigration, bankruptcy, real estate, and estate matters. We also do eviction proceedings. There is a second office in Jamaica, West Indies, that focuses on legal representation if you are seeking to buy or sell property, or if you are looking to wrap up an estate. If you have questions this morning in the live, you can contact me at 718-502-9137. That's 718-502-9137. This morning, I wanted to just to give tips and pointers for those of you who are entering into what we will call holy matrimony. Now, for those of you who are looking to build with your spouse, I am going to encourage most of you. I don't want you to get so complacent in your marriage that you take things for granted. And what I'm finding is because you never know when things are going to go awry in your marriage. And one thing you have to realize is I always say the angel at the altar is completely different from the devil you will face in the courtroom. And what I find is your spouse is supposed to be your greatest confidant. However, in a divorce proceedings, you are now adversarial. You're sitting across from your enemy. And I'm going to show how a loving relationship, getting into the marriage where it falls apart if you are not careful in how you are acquiring your assets, and if you are not, I'll call it watchful as to your spouse acquiring their assets, then what I'm going to let you know is that for years to come, you are going to be in a scenario where there are going to be a lot of regrets. And I find I don't want you to get so complacent in your marriage that when you are, in fact, acquiring assets, you do not put the source of the funds that was used to acquire the assets. So, for example, let's say if you were able to meet into an accident and you were rewarded, excuse me one second, you were in fact rewarded with a personal injury settlement. I'm going to encourage anyone who gets inheritance, if you get a personal injury award, or if it is that you received a gift during your marriage, do not mix that with your marital funds. Go and open a separate bank account. And I'm going to encourage you, open a separate bank account, deposit that money. The reason being is where you fail to prove where your source of the funds came from. These are funds where, God forbid, if you later engage in a divorce proceedings, what this does for you is that if you can show the deposit, the source of the deposit, the check that you got from your attorney when you unfortunately had an accident or some injury, If you can show that I have a copy of the check, this check was taken to the bank. Here is the bank statement where I opened the account. And when I was purchasing the house, I have the check that I used from that specific account to deposit on the house. What this does for you in a divorce proceedings is from the top, you get this money. So let's say that you had a accident and you got $50,000 and you took that $50,000 check and you went ahead and you opened your bank account. And in opening that bank account, later on, you decided that you're going to use some of that monies and you're going to put it on a home that you're buying with your spouse. I'm going to show you how you get credits. So you use these funds to deposit on a house. Later on, the marriage does not work out. It is the intention that when you get married, that it is going to last forever. However, we're not clairvoyants, we're no fortune teller, so we don't know if it's going to work out. So just in case, and this is how you have to protect yourself, because this is where funds that you would have been able to keep, I think it would be very unwise of someone if they received that personal injury settlement and then they went ahead and opened a joint account. You have to realize the joint account, you're giving the other owner a 50% interest in your monies. So if that person was supposed to go to the bank and wipe out all that monies, the bank is not able to stop them because they are a legal holder on the account. So God forbid that you met into an accident, go ahead and open a new account and put those funds in. It is the same as if you are supposed to get an inheritance. Go ahead and open a completely new account and put that money in. It's also the same as if you got a gift, because some parents divide up the monies prior to death, right? They're not going to wait until they pass to chop up the monies. So they're willing now, whilst they're alive, to share up the monies to give this child X, that child Y. Don't deposit that in a joint account. I am not, if you want this fund to remain separate, do not deposit that monies in a joint account. So let's say you got a 50,000 settlement, you open your bank account, you put the 50,000, you keep a copy of the check that you got that personal injury award. You keep the opening statement, proof of that deposit into a new bank account. When you are looking to acquire a house with your spouse, you go ahead and from that bank account that you deposited your separate monies, you write the deposit check of $30,000. So once you are able to trace these proceeds, what happens is that in your divorce proceedings, when that house gets sold, you get that 30,000 off the top. So, good morning for those of you who are in fact just joining us. I'm just trying to give pointers to protect your assets. So in the future, God forbid, you end up in a divorce, you can justly get back monies that are deemed separate property in a divorce proceedings. So good morning, Yellow. Good morning, Sandy. Good morning, Steffi, and good morning, Matt. It is sad where people have worked and they have put aside monies And because I don't care what you know, it doesn't work out to what you know. In essence, it works out to what you can prove. And this is where I'll have clients who say, well, Antoinette, I had 20,000 before the marriage and I used that monies and I placed that on the house. Why is it that I'm not getting that back? Okay. So this is where you have to now come and show me that in your account prior to marriage, you had that $20,000, and it is that same account that had that balance. But what happened to people who are, and this is what really breaks my heart, where you have people who have been married for 30 years, 20 something years, and they now are divorcing. They don't have these documents. Let's get real. They don't. They don't have these documents. They can't prove it. And unfortunately, this is where they end up losing monies that they could have walked away with, and they have to share it with their spouse in a divorce proceedings. And it's tough, right? But lack of knowledge is a thing that affects our community. And I'll tell you this, you may enter into a marriage where, unknown to you, your spouse has an agenda. And in that agenda, it is a take, take, take. And I'm going to encourage anyone, if you are in a marriage and you are the only person doing, where you are the only person that is economically viable, and you are the person that's paying all the bills, and men take on this role and women take on this role, I'm going to encourage you. Let your spouse, you're rising, let your spouse rise with you. When you are the breadwinner in a marriage, in the event of a divorce proceedings, you are looking at maintenance, yeah, because you're subject to paying this. You are also looking at, other than maintenance, you're also looking at, for long-term marriages, you're coming out 50-50. And that's just the reality, right? I've had clients where they are the ones who are the most economically viable. And sometimes I have to let them know it's cheaper to keep her. And that's just your reality. You end up in a divorce proceedings, it's not going to bode well for you. Yeah. If you are in a marriage and you're contributing to your retirement assets are marital. So if it is that you are contributing to your retirement, try and encourage your spouse that they also contribute to their retirement. Because when your retirements are on the same level financially, right? You both basically have the same amount of monies, then it's a wash. But where it is that you're the person who has been the only one really contributing, and your spouse was enjoying their monies, then presumption is that that money was being spent in the house. And oftentimes things happen years ago. You are not able to prove that this money was possibly wasted at the gambling house. So guess what? Because you can't prove this, then you can't even claim waste in your marriage, right? So that you can recoup some of that loss. And it's a judge's position that they are not going to look back into the dealings of your marriage, where if it was such a problem, you should have filed divorce proceedings. And this is where people get angry in a divorce, where they know that their spouse wasted the monies, but they just can't prove it. And now it is, you get stuck in a situation where half of your pension is going. And had that person contributed to their pension, probably it would have been a wash. And this is where you have to really be vigilant in your marriage. And I had a lady come to me, they've been married for years. And this is a concept, to me, your second wife. If it is you are living here and your spouse is living back home, you are second wife. I don't care what your marriage certificate says. I don't know how you run in a household where you're living separately. There is no way. It is just impossible to me. It is clear that obviously your spouse has to be engaging with someone who is the real wife, so you're just the wife on paper. And that is the position that some people have lived with for years, and they're fine with it. Yeah? If you're fine with it, then great. But here it is, this lady's married. She's married for over, I think, 30 years. And the man has not contributed much. And everything the man has, he had before the marriage. And everything she has was acquired during the marriage. So for her to get a divorce, guess what's going to happen? His assets are separate. He had them before the marriage. Everything that she has was acquired during the marriage. So you know what's going to happen? If she gets divorced, he keeps his assets, and now he gets half of her retirement, half of the house, where she's not going to be able to afford a mortgage now. The woman is in high 60s. So we don't know how long we're going to live for. Imagine at 70 something, 80 something, for her to even qualify, get the refinance at these interest rates to buy him out. That's unrealistic. She's not going to make it. And I said to her, okay, there's a child in the home. What does he do? When you look at the child's income, there's no way he's going to be able to join with her so she can buy this man out. So he's going to come like a thunderstorm, roll up and take half of her assets, and he keeps his. Guess why? He had it before the marriage. Yeah? So these are the things that you have to take into consideration. And it's the same. I've had men who come into the office, they're the breadwinners. The wife didn't really want to work much. I have had cases where when the husband realizes that this is the division of the assets, and what you don't have to understand, and for young girls who like to take up married men, I'm gonna encourage you against that. The reason why a lot of them will not leave their spouse, and you'll get the story that they're going to, but you're not seeing it happening, is economically they cannot afford to leave her. They're subject to, and some people have accumulated a substantial amount of monies in their retirement. So they're going to lose half of that, right? For what was accumulated. If someone, most of or all of their working life, their contributions, all of their working life, they were married. So what this means is all of their contributions to their retirement is marital. And if it is that they are going to get a divorce, they are looking at half of what they have invested for. First of all, oftentimes it's a situation where when the men are stepping out, it's a much younger woman. You can't afford for mine him. After all these years of contributing in his pension, you can't afford to give him back that money. Sorry. Yeah? So you have to just stay outside. Right? Let's get real. You can't afford to give him back that money. And if him get a divorce, those assets that were acquired, that marital home, that pension, that 401k, that 457, yeah? In a divorce proceedings, he's losing that. Yeah? And as a result of which, you're losing the asset. You're going to, let's say, a lower standard of living, right? Because once your income, if some people are retired and their retirement is coming from Social Security and their pension benefits, and they get a divorce and they've been married right throughout they were working, they are going to lose 50% of that. And economically now, every dollar that you have, you need that monies. Let's get real. Yeah? All right. Good morning, Derek. So Derek is saying good morning, Osbourne. Thank you for your legal skills and how you are helping the community. We have to. This is why now a lot of people are seeking to do prenups. And especially where they have acquired a lot. And they're just meeting you after acquiring. They're going to do a prenup. Yeah? And what is truly amazing to me is and I'll never forget my client, right? His wife was slick, but my client wasn't dumb. And this is where in any relationship you can, Tom drunk, but Tom wasn't fool. And he met this lady. He was married for years and the wife died. So of course, all the assets as spouse, he was able to take, right? Because they held most things jointly. And upon her death, right of survivorship, those real estate went to him. The house he was living, and this is where if you are not slick, yeah? Because especially when some of you are bringing these scammers in your life, when you are meeting these people, if you are not 10 steps ahead of them, you're going to lose out. And I'll tell you, a smart woman, but my client wasn't dumb. He had inherited the house, right? Or by operation of law, that house went to him. Because once you hold property in New York as husband and wife, there's an automatic right of survivorship, right? So here was a client, wife died, he got the house. And of course, you're in the house by yourself. This is where, you need companionship. Anybody who tell you say you don't need companionship, I lie them, I tell. Them in a them house by themselves, I draw anything move them, I draw a curtain. Yeah? We're human beings, we're social beings. And some people will be angry if they should pass away and their spouse remarries. But why should that spouse be alone? I don't see it. Why not? We are social beings and we like human contact. Anyway, like I said, the more mature men will often seek a younger companionship. So this woman was probably 20 something years younger than him. And when she met him, this is how it goes. And some men fall for it. But I said my client was no fool. He was nobody's fool. And her encouragement was, I don't feel comfortable in this house. You know, your first wife, this was her house. So I don't want to make a home in this house. And as a spouse, you want to make your wife comfortable. But he's nobody's soul. Because the plan was get him to sell this house and then buy a house in our names so that now I can reap the benefit, because this is what is going to happen. If you sell your house, yeah, and you go ahead and you buy another house, and in that purchase, you put another person's name on it, and this person is your wife. So New York is giving your spouse, you're putting them on the deed. There's an interest in that house. And we have a concept here in New York called tenants by the entirety. So her name is on the deed. You pass down to them also. She acquires the entire house. You're in a divorce proceedings. She has an interest in that house. You have to be careful. I think it's easier to go ahead and buy something with someone who you have successfully built a life with, someone who has been there with you when you're going through certain hardships. But when all you've worked for is now in question because you have a new spouse, right? May not be so bad, because remember, marital property is from the date of marriage to the date you file your divorce proceedings. But the empowerment that you're giving is you're putting your spouse name on everything. So that's like a 50% gift. I would encourage, and I'm not saying that you're not going to take care of your new spouse. Absolutely not. I've had clients where I'm representing in a divorce proceeding. So, who is this beside you? It's the new woman. Yeah, because she's smart. Once you want to ensure that you're getting a divorce, and two, she want to know how much money after this divorce proceedings you're going to be left with, because she not marry you yet. So it's like, all right, so this is what he's going to end up with. Is it worth it? Because what you'll find is, yes, there's love, but there's also the business aspect to marriage, right? Because you're trying to ensure that you have a partner that you can grow with. So when my client was in a divorce proceedings, right? He never changed his deed. And he never anticipated that 5 years after he married this woman, they would end up in a divorce. But he was no dummy. He didn't change that deed. And is such a move in, is same such a move out. Yeah? And you have to be careful with things that you have worked for. And I think that people are no longer focused on people's agenda. Some people meet you, they see what you have, and it is an agenda. Yeah? But some people don't pick up on this. And it becomes dangerous where all you've worked for is a portion of it goes just because you are now in a divorce proceedings. And people become very angry because one, the intent upon marriage was that you'd stay together. And what I find this more so with the women than I do with the men. The women are, the men will say, Antoinette, give her, make she go on, because the men know they are gonna make it back. But the women are giving you nothing because they're not leaving you with anything so the new woman can benefit from that. The men are more laxed in giving and say, look, I don't care, make it go on. Especially when them have them new woman a wait upon them. So yeah man, them give you everything. Them just want to come out, them just want to leave. And I think one of the dumbest thing that a man will do in a divorce is make your wife know that you've already moved on. The bitterness, and I don't think people realize, some people don't understand how to let go. And the bitterness that comes in that divorce, and you can understand, people are investing in their marriage and they're investing in their spouse. And what is sad is after years of investing in someone, they decide that this is not working out for them. And as a result of which, yeah, they're moving on. And they're moving on without you. I've had clients where, and I find this especially with the women, I've only had, throughout my years of doing this, I have only had, no, two. One client who he really, really loved his wife, really wanted to save his marriage, could not come to terms with the fact that they are divorcing, and he broke down. He literally broke down. Yeah. But thank God he broke down in my office and not in court. And she was pushing for the divorce. But what's amazing to me was on the final day, because by now he's realizing he's lost her, there's nothing he can do, and he just has to move on. So by the time we're coming to the end of the divorce, there's a difference when you have accepted certain things. And he came to a point where he accepted it. And when we had a final hearing, she was the one that was crying. And he's looking at me confused. And I'm confused myself because she was aggressive. She wanted the divorce. She wanted to leave. Then I don't know, it could be tears of joy. I don't know. It is the rare occasion that I have clients who will say, stop this. We are getting back together. Yeah. And I try to, when I speak to the client, I try to see if they're in a place where they are ready to proceed. Because if it is, you have some people who they don't want to divorce, and it's gonna waste my time because I'm here to divorce you. But if you're not there yet, you're gonna come to me and you're going to stop the divorce. So for clients like those, I encourage them, go home, go and work on your marriage. Yeah. I have told several people this. Yeah, me no know how me make money in a life. Yeah. But me send them home. Yeah. And some of them, they have kept their marriages, while some of them have come back and they have divorced because it get worse. I'll never forget my client from Ghana, beautiful girl. And she came and you could see she was still in love with her husband. But I think the final straw, right, was where she found a homemade movie with him and the girl. And then the girl never lived here, But when she order things online, she deliver it to the house. You see, them level of disrespect. Yeah, me prefer for leave before it reach them level there. Because what y'all try push me to, y'all gonna put me upon the news. Cause someday I one string a hold me up. Yeah, man, you reach them level of disrespect where you get a order things and it a come at the yard. No, big man, you gotta say a different me. But this lady was such a nice lady. Yeah. But that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Yeah. And she said, Antoinette, let's do it. Some people get pushed to a point where, yeah, they're not going to. So Gillette says, let me see this. Good morning. I had a grandnephew in Jamaica I would like to adopt. I'm living in New York, a permanent resident. What should I do first? And good morning, Amarildo. All right. Here's the thing with the adoption. And I think the family court in Jamaica is picking up on this, that USCIS requires you to actually live, whether it is, they just need you to live at any point prior to the filing, whether it's before the adoption or after the adoption, with that child for 2 years. You can't prove that, it's not gonna happen. And the family court in Jamaica is realizing that people are adopting these children and the kids getting stuck in Jamaica because the American parent or the parent who has lawful residence here is not able to do that. So, like, even though they have the adoption decree, they can't show that they were living with them for 2 years. And as such, there's no movement. Yeah. Because even though you may have adopted a child, you have further steps to take. And anybody who is adopting a child, this adoption must be completed before the child's 16th birthday if you want to bring this child here. Yeah? All right, so just tuning in. Caller, you're on the live. Hello?
Hello, good morning, Miss Osbourne. How are you today?
I am good, my darling.
Good morning, Miss Osbourne.
I can hear you, my love. You have a question for us?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go
Are you
ahead.
hearing me any clearer now?
Yeah, you are clear. Everybody's hearing you, my
Yes.
darling.
I have a minor, a child. She's a minor. She's actually 15 years old.
Okay.
And her dad filed for her in 2022 in October. That will make it 2 years.
Okay.
We are unable to get her here, and we have a crisis within Jamaica because she's actually rebelling, not being with the father and so on and so forth, to the point where the school is actually terminating her. So it becomes a crisis. We would like to have her here. We have a court document where the father here had gotten custody of her from the Supreme Court in Kingston, Jamaica. Can you tell me, if there's something wrong while the child waiting for a year and a half, is 2 years under these circumstances, especially with a document of for custody that the father had gained from the Supreme Court in Jamaica. So the child is unprotected right now.
Okay. All right. So hang up and I'll answer.
Please advise.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Here's the problem. And it's a serious problem because the embassy is so backlogged. And unless it's a real medical emergency or there is some form of threat to life and safety or it's a health crisis, they're not moving. And they're not really expediting dates. And it is ridiculous that people, and I know that we did suffer a backlog with COVID, and it has in fact caused a lot of delays with applications. But I, I I don't know if they need more staff, and I'm going to encourage you to find someone who is kind of stable to house this child. Because the sad thing is, I don't see the embassy deeming this an emergency. And one of the saddest things is because a child has a parent, whether the parent files for them or not, they're not giving them a visitor's visa, because if you file for them, they're on filing. And if you didn't file for them, you have the ability to file for them. So they will say that child needs an immigrant visa. Yet still the child is being filed for, and let's get real. The child is being filed for, and there's no date. And if the parent is a US citizen, this is what I'm going to encourage you to do. And this may, in fact, cause a turnaround. Visit your local congressman and explain the situation, because I find that your politicians who you vote in, and this is where you have to make use of the fact that you're putting them in power. Visit your local congressman and see if they can intervene in the situation. Other than that, you are going to be waiting on the availability of an interview date at the discretion of the embassy. So that is what I would encourage her dad to do. Yeah, I find that often when there is no movement, unless they raise a whole public safety issue, your congressman usually has the ability to push your case. And this is what I'm going to encourage her father to do. Yeah. And it's sad because as a parent, you are doing your best, and you're subject to the discretion of the US Embassy. And I see no backlog as I see with the embassy in Kingston. It's a complete disaster in waiting for dates. Yeah. All right. So for those of you who are on the live, thank you for joining us this Sunday. I have just a few minutes left, but there's something I want to discuss, which I think is relevant to our community. Sometimes you take these children up to the United States, and whether it is a stepchild, or for some people, it's their biological children, and you take the child to the United States, the child acts up. One of the dangers that I'm seeing happening, and you've given the child the opportunity already to have the green card. But when these children come here and they start misbehaving, I find parents are becoming so frustrated that they are in fact sending that child back to their home country, but they're holding on to their green cards. And I find no basis in you've given the child the opportunity. Okay, fine. You want to send them back, but don't put that status in jeopardy. And you have children who had the ability where they could come back here and live, and because you've taken that green card, they've been out of the country for more than a year. And what happens is they're trying to the green card expires, they have lost that status. And where the person, they were in one category at the time of filing, because oftentimes you're filing for these kids, they're under 21. So now you're going to need to refile for them. I think what saved one of my clients was the green card had not expired. So she came back in, right? And she wants to file for citizenship. And I have explained the risk. You've been out of this country for such a long time. You are at risk of the officer if you file for your citizenship. Caller, you're on the air, love.
Hello, good morning, Miss Osbourne.
Good morning, darling. You have
I call already, but I think I need to let my situation, which I want to ask you, I want to let this be open because I have a situation. I have a custody case in the Bronx Defender's Office where I'm getting the runaround, as I explained to you before. And I said that the medication is mandatory. What I see the last time they canceled the court case, I didn't get advice until I was at the court. I know what they did again. They withdrew my visit from the baby. I'm going to the doctors to do an evaluation. And what these doctors are telling me, okay, Miss Williams, you have to take the medication. I don't know what to do.
okay.
To get back my child, they said I have to take the medication. The diagnosis that they gave me, they misdiagnosed me. Even when the policeman came to the house, they were called, 911 was called for me to go to the hospital. My passport was taken up in the mids, and they're like, oh, and they're not giving it back to me. So I don't know what to do from here.
Okay, so how is it that you are aware that you are misdiagnosed? Is it that you went for a second opinion to...
Sorry, I didn't.
Okay, is it that you went for a second opinion at a different treating physician?
I can hardly hear what you're saying.
Is it okay? So you said you're misdiagnosed. Is it that you went for a second opinion from a treating physician?
Yeah, this is what I'm trying to do. I go to, like, right now I'm like I ended up now in 3 different facilities. I was at Montefiore, I ended up at Westchester, the one all the way in Lincoln, and what I realized, none of the doctors want to, like, okay, Miss Williams, this was a hassle. Only one doctor was like, okay, Miss Williams, they misdiagnosed you, but you need to get a lawyer. So I don't know.
Okay, so if that doctor is saying that you're
But he doesn't want to write anything on paper to say, oh, yes.
Okay, so probably you need to seek on your own, seek a doctor who is willing to give you...
I can go back online and then hear.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely, darling.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so here is the issue. If it is that you have been misdiagnosed, you have to prove it, right? And if the doctor who has stated this is not willing to basically provide you with any documentation or diagnosis that you've been misdiagnosed, you on your own have to seek a second opinion where you will be provided with documentation of this. And I think what is happening is that it is possibly coming to the court's attention that you are not taking your treatment. And if the court believes that it's not in the best interest of the child for you to be around the child, in that possibly that you may be a danger to the child, then the court is going to stop all visits. At the end of the day, their primary concern when it comes to custody cases or when it comes to visitation, the court's only concern is the best interest of the child, because they have to focus on the well-being of the child. So if it is that you want to prove that you have been misdiagnosed, you have to start from that point, right? Because if you have been misdiagnosed, then the medication and the treatment that they are giving you, that is not going to be a correct method of treatment. So I think one of the things you first have to be able to show is that you have been misdiagnosed. And that doctor has to, of course, be willing to testify in your custody case. And if externally, other than the misdiagnosis, if however there are external factors where, God forbid, at any point you had placed the child in harm's way, then the court, other than what the doctor is saying, regardless of the misdiagnosis, if that child, God forbid, has at any point been in danger, then the court is also going to consider that, other than the misdiagnosis. All right, so we are coming to the end of the live. I wanted to do a live with, because I find that it, and this is specifically for Jamaicans. As you know, I'm an attorney who is licensed in Jamaica. One of the things I wanted to focus on one Sunday is the fact that for those of you where you have property in Jamaica and you are not going back to that property, right? And people are in open possession of that property, exercising all rights of ownership. This is a way where they can capture your land. And being in the diaspora, where, and this can be a friend capturing your land, a family member capturing your land, paying your property taxes alone is not enough. And I think one Sunday I want to touch base on this, because people have worked hard. They have spent a substantial sum of monies, and the fact that you are at risk of someone capturing your land, I think it is such a serious issue. And one Sunday, I'm not sure when, I want to focus on this, because I think you should protect your property interest. And I'm just going to encourage you, be very careful of who you put in your homes to oversee it. You put the wrong person in your house and you are not exercising all rights of ownership over that property. You're not visiting it. You're not hostile in your possession with regards to occupants in the house who are seeking to capture your land. You have to be careful, right? Because in capturing, the courts are focusing on possession, and you cannot be in possession of that land where you're in fact living overseas. So one Sunday, I want to focus on this because I want you to protect yourselves. A lot of you have invested a substantial sum of monies in trying to ensure that you have acquired real estate back home. But at the end of the day, I don't want people who have acquired it, I don't want you to lose it by adverse possession, or what we call capture land. All right. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. We will be back on next week, Sunday at 9, or should I say 9-ish. I want to encourage those of you who are just entering into your marriages, or you're already in your marriages and you are acquiring assets, please keep the documentation of your contribution. I have a client where he says, oh, I give her my share of the mortgage via cash. And you know what was the woman's position? He has never paid a dime. How is he going to prove it? Be very careful of your cash transactions with your spouse. Yeah? Because when they are ready to fail you, they are going to fail you big time. All right, so I will see you next Sunday morning. Strong Girl Gives. All right, have a wonderful week and spend some time with your family.